We designed our project as a role-playing game in which the player moves through an interactive environment, picks up items, and defeats enemies in order to eventually reach and defeat the final boss. We basically designed our game as a video game with dice. First, let's show you the foundations of the code.
Here we have all the classes we used for the game. These are the game data classes. This over here is the character class and the inventory class. And lastly, we have all the item classes.
To define the functionality of the game, we developed a flowchart to define what would occur as a result of each event in the game. There were three major subsystems: movement, shown here on the left, combat, shown here on the right, and inventory, shown here on the top.
Alright, so for our game we have three major variables that we use to store all the information. The first is the game data variable. The game data variable holds all the game state information. This includes the number of players in the game, the player names, the active player, the active enemy, etc. Most of the information here is used to control state information with the game. The next major variable that we have is the environment variable. The environment variable is made up of the actual map, the enemies, the items, and the players. I'm going to detail these here in just a second. In the environment, we store all these objects that we've used in the game in what we call the environment container. The environment container is made up of the object itself, which is an enemy, a character, or an item. Then we have an associated position with that in the map. And then we have an index here for ease of access into this environment container. One of the biggest challenges was creating these environment containers randomly and with a unique set of positions for the enemies. So the way we did that was we would create all of our enemy objects from a configuration file. Then we would generate the map positions also from a configuration file. Then we would randomly grab an index of the position for the number of enemies in each of these containers and store them over here in our environment container. The last major variable that we have here, or major class I should say, would be the character class. This includes the statistics, the inventory, the images, and the sounds for the characters. The statistics are used for calculating the combat results. This is health, attack, damage, defense. The inventory here is made up of environment containers. What this allows you to do is dynamically equip items through the game to boost the player's stats to make combat easier and actually allow the player to win the game. That's your armors, your weapons, and your booster items.
So these are some of the variables that are used in the combat mode of the game. Your total attack is your base attack plus your attack modifier plus your dice roll. Your total defense is your base defense plus your defense modifier plus your dice roll. Your total damage is your base damage plus your damage modifier. Your damage reduction, which is a player-only statistic, is determined by the damage reduction modifier. All the modifiers can be increased based on the equipment in your inventory. Your attack and defense determine whether or not an attack will hit, and your total damage and damage reduction determine how much damage is done if an attack hits. So this is the basic model of how the combat works in the game. If the player's on offense and the enemy is on the defense, and if your player attack is greater than the enemy defense, then the attack hits and you subtract the player's damage from the enemy's health. If the player's attack is less than or equal to the enemy defense, then the attack misses and no damage is done. Then, the player becomes on the defense and the enemy becomes on the offense. If the enemy's attack is greater than the player defense, then the attack hits and you subtract the difference between the enemy damage and the player damage reduction from the player's health. If the enemy attack is less than or equal to the player defense, then the attack misses and no damage is done.
This is the basic layout of the GUI. In the upper left, we have the map, which will update as you move through the room. You move through the rooms using the movement buttons, which are up here. As you move into a new room, the room view and the items in room will update. The room view will display whether or not there is an enemy. If there is one, you will see an enemy. Additionally, there will be healing potions, armor, and weaponry in the items in room list box. You can pick those up using the pickup key and place them in your inventory, which will move with you. You can use healing potions to increase your health, or you can equip armor and weaponry to increase your play statistics, which are displayed here. If you move into a room with an enemy will appear, and the enemy statistics will pop up. These buttons will be disabled because you must fight your enemy. You attack your enemy, or defend against them, using the attack button, which rolls dice. The dice will be displayed here, and the success of the roll will be displayed here. The dialogue will tell you what is happening in the game. Once you defeat your enemy, these will stay disabled. It's time to end your turn. When you end your turn, the second player's statistics will pop up on the screen. Here you can see the basic map layout with player 1 in blue, player 2 in pink, and the boss in red. The player statistics are listed under the blue player 1. You move around the map using the direction keys. As you can see, the player's position is updating. When you find an item, you can pick it up with the pickup button, and then add it to your player with the equip item button. It has now been added to your player, and your defense has increased.
So this is a basic introduction to the combat mode of the game. You can see I have my enemy in my room view. All the enemy statistics can be seen right here, and next to the enemy statistics are the player stats, and you can see them underneath my player 2. I'm player 2, I have an attack of 2, defense 2, and damage 2. So to defeat my enemy, I'm going to click this attack defend button. You can see my player die, I rolled a 5, so it gives me an attack of 7, and my enemy rolled a 1, giving him a defense of 2. And since 7 is greater than 2, my attack hits, and my damage is subtracted from his overall health. My attack is my die roll plus my attack. So 5 plus 2 gives me the 7, and the enemy die roll, his defense, is the die roll plus the defense, which gives him 2. And I'm just going to continue this until the enemy is defeated. If I have an enemy die of 4, he's on the attack, so you add 2 to his score, and since 6 is less than 8, the attack doesn't hit, and no damage is done to me, and this process is just repeated until the enemy is defeated or I am killed. And then I end my turn, and all of the stats are reset for player 1.
Now, to initialize the game, all you do is type in UE_GUI1, hit enter, enter the number of players you want to be playing with, enter their names, choose which map you want to play, click OK. Your GUI will populate, and you're ready to go. Have fun! And that's our game. If you still have any questions, don't worry. We've got you covered. In the upper right-hand corner, you will find a button labeled Game Help. Clicking this button will pull up a PDF explaining combat, movement, gameplay, and more.
The responsibilities were defined as follows for both the core and the reach elements. The core elements, the dice game, Catherine took the lead on actually generating the dice algorithm to roll the dice. The GUI, we all worked as a team to develop the different components of the GUI. Animation was Catherine and myself. Sound effects were Catherine, and user-defined object-oriented programming class was everybody. We all had to use the custom classes to finish and complete the project. For the reach elements that we have defined, the dynamic GUI, this is enabling and disabling buttons. Catherine was in charge of most of that. The dynamic environment, item equipping, was Heather's responsibility, and the character interactions was my responsibility. The procedurally generated items and the map was my responsibility.